If the TOEFL Listening Section academic lectures is giving you a hard time, listen up. I'm about to show you how to answer those questions quickly and accurately without learning a lot of subjects or reading a lot of boring vocabulary lists. Hello, my name is Mr. Hearn, and I am your TOEFL tutor. If you haven't already, subscribe, like, share my videos, and if you've been with me for a while and you haven't subscribed, what are you waiting for? It's free, and it helps to encourage me to make more videos to help you. All right, so what we're going to do right now is to learn how the TOEFL listening section works so that you can practice, get a higher score, and stop taking this crazy test. Let's see how it works. TOEFL IBT Listening Section Academic Lectures. The TOEFL IBT listening section is testing your short-term memory and your ability to take brief notes of the main topic and related information in a brief lecture. Did you get that? All we're doing is learning how to take notes, fewer notes, but more relevant notes, and use those notes to trigger our memory of what we heard so that we can use our memory of what we heard to eliminate wrong choices based on the rules. This is not a test of learning something and using what you learned to answer questions. You know, most tutors are teaching that you have to learn a lot of different subjects to prepare for the TOEFL. That's completely wrong. In fact, the less you know about the subjects, the better. In this test, everything you need to know is what they tell you in the test. Anything outside of what they tell you is wrong and will likely trick you into picking wrong choices. So what we're going to do, we're going to learn to listen for certain things and take very brief but relevant notes and use our notes to trigger our memory to use the rules to eliminate wrong choices. Let me show you how that works. Important. You are not learning the subject or anything about it. You will not be tested on everything in the lecture, so you don't have to take extensive notes. And spelling doesn't count. There's something else you need to know about the TOEFL academic lectures, and that is they put a lot of extra information in the passages just to overwhelm you with too much English, and they put high-level vocabulary words in there that you don't need to know to answer the questions. They're just there to intimidate you and to make you think that you don't know enough to do well on this test. You see, it's not really a test of academics or English. It's a test of how well you can control your mind and emotions and use the procedures and rules that they use to design the test to answer the questions quickly and accurately. So what we're going to do is we're going to learn to listen to only certain things so we can take just the relevant notes that we need and then use those notes to trigger our memory to eliminate wrong choices. I know I've said that before. I repeat myself for a reason. So let's take a look at how we're going to do this. There will be 3 academic lectures throughout the listening section. In at least one, only the professor speaks. Others will contain classroom dialogue in which one or more students will be interacting with the professor. And you'll hear each lecture only once. Lectures are structured around a main idea, topic, or general concept. In lectures, the speaker will usually introduce the main idea or topic at the very beginning of the talk. And the professor will then follow the topic of the discussion with supporting reasons, examples, and details. Be sure to take only the notes needed to remind you of what was said in the lecture. While taking notes, quiet your mind. It's your self-talk that interferes with taking the relevant notes needed to answer the questions quickly and accurately. All right, this is very important because this test is designed to overwhelm you and to create anxiety and confusion, which causes you to have a certain self-talk like, oh no, I missed that. How am I going to answer this question? And while you're thinking those negative thoughts, you're missing important information that you're going to need to answer the questions. Now, ETS knows exactly how you think. ETS is the makers of the TOEFL test. They know exactly how you think by having decades of experimental sections to learn how you think. And they use that to manipulate you into having anxiety and extra thoughts, which prevent you from hearing the information that you need to answer the questions. Now, I have two kinds of students: those who take lots and lots and lots of notes and get overwhelmed by too many notes and they can't figure out what notes to use to answer the questions, and those who don't take any notes and they figure they're just going to try to remember everything. Well, neither of those methods work. What you need to do is know how ETS gives information that they're going to ask questions about. And that's the trick to getting a high score on the listening section, is to know what to take notes on. You see, when you take a lot of notes, it's because you're not sure what you're going to be asked about. So you try to take notes of everything. But when you're writing, you're not listening. ETS knows that. So they know what notes you're going to take, and they know how to give information in a way that you're going to miss it. So how do we overcome that? Learn how ETS gives you the information. Then you can take fewer notes, but more relevant notes, and use those notes to trigger your memory and use your memory to eliminate wrong choices. Let's get into seeing how that works. There are two questions that you always want to keep in mind. Number one, what are they talking about? And number two, what are they saying about that? These two questions are the basics for the entire test. You want to know what's the main topic and what are they saying about it? And when you're taking notes, just take a few notes. In other words, when you hear the professor talking about a topic, write down what the topic is. Spelling doesn't count, so don't try to spell everything right. Just spell it phonetically. And that is the way it sounds. So you're going to spell out the topic, and then the professor is going to either give a short description of the topic or say something about what the topic is doing. All you have to do is write down 2, maybe 3 words of the description or what the topic is doing, so that when you see those words, you will remember what they heard, or you'll remember what you heard, you'll remember what they said. And so when you have a question that's asked about that topic, you will look at your notes, and those notes will trigger your memory to what you heard. Now, if you have extra self-talk, those notes are going to trigger you to what you were thinking at the time. Like, I don't know how to spell this. This is too hard. They're talking too fast. Quiet your mind. No extra self-talk. What did they say? What are they talking about? And what did they say about it? That's all you need to know. What did they talk about and what did they say about it? Let's continue on. General note-taking tips. Your notes are only to help trigger your memory of what you heard. So when taking notes, don't write long sentences. Simply listen and write down the topic and a couple of words about the details. Number 1, listen for the introduction of the topic in an academic lecture. The lectures will typically begin with the professor greeting the class and then giving a general statement of what the lecture will be about. Listen for the professor to use emphasized words, words with extra inflection, and listen to what they say. And sometimes the lecture may begin with a recap of the previous class and end with the topic of the new discussion. Take notes of what the professor says the lecture will be about. Number 2, listen for repeated words. Whenever you hear the professor repeat words and phrases in the lecture, listen and take notes of the main idea and related details. Number 3, listen for key words and phrases. In each passage type, you will hear certain key words or phrases that will cue you in to taking the notes you need to answer the questions. In general, when listening to lectures, listen for words such as theory, example, cause, explanation, and views. Whenever you hear such words, write down what the professor says next, including the related details. Number 4, listen for numbers. Listen for the professor to say things like, there are 2 reasons for that, or this flower has 3 main features. Write down the numbers they say in list form and take notes of the topic and details of each point. Number 5, pay attention to transitions. Listen for transitions and digression sentences. Typically, North American English grammar structure is the opposite of most languages in the world. So be particularly alert for opposite direction words. Words like despite, however, although, on the other hand, and but. Pay special attention to what the professor says next. Number 6, when listening to lectures, anytime a professor asks a question to a specific student, or anytime a student asks a question, be sure to take notes of the answer. This information will often be the topic of one or more questions following the lecture. However, when a professor asks a question in general, such as, does anyone know why fireflies light up? The question is merely rhetorical. The professor is asking this question only to get the class's attention and to get them to pay closer attention to what is about to be explained further. In other words, regardless of the topic, all the professor is doing is asking the class to pay attention. Number 7, look at photos, drawings, and diagrams. In lectures, whenever you see a photo, drawing, or a diagram, make sure to take notes of the details the professor gives about it. These details will most likely be the answers to a multiple point question that will follow the lecture. All right, as I've said, ETS gives information in a very specific way about things they're going to ask you about. Listen for the things I just described and take brief notes. Remember, you're going to use those notes to trigger your memory to eliminate choices based on very specific rules. Let me show you how that works. Answering questions the ETS way. Process of elimination. The process of elimination is the most accurate way to answer questions quickly. Wrong choices are, number 1, not mentioned in the lecture, and number 2, have a different meaning than what was stated in the lecture. When answering questions, ask yourself these 2 questions. Number 1, what is the question asking about? And number 2, what did the passage say about that? Then use your notes and your memory to eliminate choices that, 1, either don't remember hearing about, or 2, have information that is different from what you remember having heard. Finally, don't try to get the answer right. ETS is far too tricky for that. Simply follow the methods I've prescribed. Get your respectable passing score and get on with your life. All right, so this is the basics for how you're going to take fewer notes in listening lectures and use your notes to answer questions quickly and accurately. What I'm teaching may seem radically different from what other people are teaching, but that's because I'm teaching you exactly how the test works so that you can get that respectable passing score. If you would like to have a more in-depth lesson, go to my online TOEFL course where I show you using up-to-date, genuine ETS TOEFL IBT practice tests, how to answer each question step by step so that you can get that respectable passing score. Also, if you're interested in taking online courses via Zoom with me, Mr. HEARN, your TOEFL tutor, you can click on the link in the description below. And when you click on the Zoom link, don't be surprised when it's me who's there helping you to pass this crazy test. I know you've been struggling. I know how hard it is. And I know how to help you answer these questions quickly and accurately so you can get that respectable passing score on your TOEFL and get on with living a successful life. All right, I'll see you in the next video.